Hello everyone. My name is Mayank, and welcome to yet another episode of PWPF UW Product Management Club's podcast. For this episode, I'm got a very special guest. I've got one of the best people I've worked with, smartest people, nicest people. We've got Curtis Lingard. He's right here. Curtis, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Mayank, thanks for having me here today. I always love working with you. It's a pleasure to sit down and talk more product management with you. I'm currently the executive director for product management, technology, and data science at Cineplex Digital Media. We've been doing product management for well over probably 12 years, 13 years, probably more than that now. I actually haven't kept track of it, to be honest. But it's been near and dear to my heart for a long time. So happy to talk about it today with you.
Yeah, for our users, like I have had this problem many times whenever I'm speaking with people and I'm like, oh, I work for Cineplex. They always say, oh, Cineplex movie chain to you. So let me just preface everything we should be talking about. So Curtis works for Cineplex, but not Cineplex, the movie chain. It's their subsidiary, Cineplex Digital Media, who puts the media screens when you go to the malls. So for example, at the Conestoga Mall that we have here in Waterloo, there is a screen that exists. On one side, you see advertisements. On the other side, you could potentially see the map to the mall. So that's the Cineplex that we're going to be referring to most of the time. So before we dive deep into product management, just let's start off with something fun. Like, tell me about something interesting about you that, a lot of people might not know about.
We have a bunch of dogs. I say bunch. We've always had two dogs. And so something most people probably don't know is that our dogs do agility. And so they go to courses. They do, teeter-totters, weave poles, tunnels, that kind. Like when you see those typically they're like border collies. But yeah, they do all these crazy obstacle courses. Yeah, our dogs absolutely love it. And they do it on a weekly basis. So, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. Honestly, I think you're the first person I've met who has dogs to do that. I remember I used to have a Nintendo DS and they had a game called Night and Dog. So I found the name so smart. It was Night and Dog, Nintendo.
That's brilliant.
Smart. Anyway, so I used to have my dogs virtually do that. So the fact that you do that, that's actually so cool. Yeah. So I think the next question that I have for you is let's just start from the beginning.
Okay.
Tell me about how you got into product management in the first place. Like, I'm sure there must have been some day in your life that you were like, oh, this is a cool opportunity. So, tell me a bit of the story about that.
Sure. So just giving you some background on me. I formerly went to school for electronics engineering. So I came out with that in mind. I ended up landing a job where I was doing repair on high-end video projectors. And it was great. There was lots of career opportunities. The company was at a point where it's just starting to grow back again. And so there's a lot of opportunity. And in that, I ended up moving into the service department where I'd be talking to customers all the time. They'd call up for a problem. I'd walk them through that on the phone, or we'd have to go through schematics and try and figure out what was going on. So over the years, there's a lot of engagement with customers. I spent about 10 to 11 years in that department, and that allowed me a chance to talk one-on-one with a lot of customers and hear what their problems, understand what they were doing with their products, what they were trying to do. I ended up shifting more away from the problem side and more onto the application side. So it would be people come in with a large project. They had this vision of what they wanted to do, but they had no idea how to technically do it. And we would help them figure out how to build this insane system that would do this beautiful vision and bring it to life. And so that allowed me to represent the clients within the company in a lot of meetings. Whether it was design reviews, product ideation, a lot of sessions, I would be pulled in as a customer representative and a service rep. And that gave me a voice of the customer within the company. And then I read a book at one point. It was called The Inmates Are Running the Asylum. I think I told you about it at one point. I loved that book. It talked about how you need a UX team to really figure out what a user experience should be and build that first versus a lot of what was traditional at that point, a lot of what I was seeing was our engineering team, or engineers in general, it didn't even have to be the company I was at, just multiple companies, engineering team would build the capability first, and then the UI is something that you did after the fact.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and this is very much persona driven, right? So the idea of starting with who are you building for? What's their life like? What's their education? What will they understand? Where will they need to be led? Starting with that idea just really resonated with me. And I remember going into, at that point, we had a very small product management team. But I went to the one person there and I said, look, I read this book. I think it's great. I think we should be doing this stuff. And that kind of put me on their radar. And it wasn't long before they kind of tapped me on the shoulder saying, look, we want you to be on the team. Would you mind coming over and joining and looking after this one portfolio? And that's kind of how I got into it, was just pure interest in representing the customer, not applying my opinion as much as I wanted to. My opinion didn't matter. But really just representing what the customer wanted for the business and then really focused on the problems that they had. So that's kind of how I got into it.
yeah, yeah. You just randomly stumbled upon solving problems, and then you essentially what I understand is you essentially understood how the product works through and through, right?
Yeah.
And then you just happen to have all of that knowledge, and then you happen to have read the book, you stumbled upon the idea of product management, and then that's what led you here.
Yeah.
Who wrote that book? I remember you telling me about that. I cannot remember. I definitely did not read it, but I can't remember who wrote it. You have that off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, no, but I can tell you in just 1 second.
Yeah. The power of the internet.
All right, so The Inmates That Are Running the Asylum was written by, where are we here? Alan Cooper. Alan Cooper. You can pick it up for, it's looking at about $5 on Amazon. So it's not even an expensive book. So.
Okay, guys, like, you want to get into product management, you get the $5 book.
Yeah.
And another thing that actually quite interested me was that, like, you should know who the user is, like who you're actually making it for, and you just don't want to have an idea that you've engineered and then you just completely butcher it with, crappy UI and UX. And that's something that like Apple has pioneered. I like to think that's what Steve Jobs started off with, right? Like making sure that the design team works at the same time, at the same pace with the engineering team, and they build the product together. You can have the best product in the world with the best algorithms, etc., etc. But if people aren't able to use it, then it just, it doesn't make sense. That doesn't make it successful, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you can look back in history and see all sorts of times where the best tech didn't win the market. It wasn't about having the best solution. It wasn't having the best algorithm, the best hardware. That ultimately doesn't matter. It really comes down to acceptance in the market. So do people enjoy it? Do they find it actually solves a problem in their life that they're willing to pay for? Like ultimately that's what comes down to product management, is making sure that you're delivering something that fixes a problem or delivers a service that a customer is willing to pay for. So
you know what, like, let's go a little thematic, considering that, like, well, the Vision Pro is everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about the Vision Pro? Because it is kind of ahead of its time, and I'm going back to the Google Glasses. I think that's what it was called, right?
Yeah.
2013. That was way ahead of its time. That's why it wasn't successful at the time. It was cool, but it wasn't successful. What do you think about the Vision Pro? I'm very curious.
It's interesting. So it's been a topic of conversation in my circle of friends for sure. I'll say this. I think Apple is very true to who Apple is in terms of their products. So it has the look and the feel. They use the same materials to give it that same level of quality you've come to expect from Apple. So I think that's fantastic. I think they had a lot of trade-offs to go through as they're building it. Things like the external battery pack, that was clearly a trade-off because it comes at a high price in terms of usability, but it does add benefits. It's the first time I saw Apple promise something and then the delivery just fell a little bit short. And I say that very carefully because it was the external OLED screen that they used to, bring the person's emotions through by showing their face. In the marketing material, it looks beautiful, and then when you see it actually in life, it's a little bit off. So and Apple rarely ever does that. They usually promise something and it delivers. So my guess, actually not even my guess, I'm going to quote a friend on this. They believed that they had all intentions of doing that, and as they approached the market, again, that was probably a trade-off where they realized in order to hit the market timing right now, they had to miss that mark. And my guess is they'll probably fix that over time. But the promise of it's interesting. I don't know if you've had a chance to work within an AR or VR world. No. So having been with an AV company for a very long time, we've had plenty of opportunity to try different scenarios, and we've built a number of very sophisticated VR ones. In general, my personal experience, this is just my personal experience, is there's usually limited time that people can spend within those environments before they get tired, more so than they do in the real world. And so that a fatigue comes out a lot faster. And so while Apple's done a great job of building that interface, I imagine that's probably going to be one of the limitations in people adopting is just how long can they spend in the technology.
In the virtual environment,
Yeah.
From I haven't had the opportunity to play around with it yet, but I don't even know, dozens of videos in the past 2 weeks about it.
Yeah.
And the biggest complaints that I hear are that it's too heavy. So thank God that they did not put the battery inside the headset itself.
Yeah.
But it would have probably increased by I think it was 100 grams or something.
It's quite a bit, yeah.
That was one of the things. And the other one was that what are people going to do with it? It is, I get that, you can just have a screen up. You can have a billion screens up all around you. You can pin them. That's a beautiful feature. I would have never thought of that. You can pin them to your surrounding.
Yeah.
So when you come back into that room, over your stove, you see your timer, or over your desk, you see the 3 tabs that you have open. I think, but I'm not able to answer the question, what do people actually do with it? I get it's cool. What are you going to do with it? Do you have an answer to that?
So I can say there's lots of potential. I think one of the things that they nailed right now is, to your point, a lot of what they've really showcased with the product so far has been implementing 2D screens within an AR world, which is kind of cool because you can create a big screen, watch a movie, you can pin your documents, but ultimately, the applications they've shown so far aren't anything new. The HoloLens was doing that 10 years ago. You'd be able to pin documents in the relative space. It could remember room to room. It knew where you were, and it could figure out what documents should have been where. So that idea hasn't really changed. But what has changed with the Vision Pro is the resolution. They've always done a great job with the resolution. So you don't get a really pixelated look to it. It feels natural. The interface, without having to have any extra tools, their hand gesture detection is fantastic.
It's fantastic from what I've heard, yeah.
So all of that's really improved quite a bit. But when it comes to what are they going to do with the technology, I think what they've shown so far is really just the tip. And there was a submission that I read, the same friend that shared this with me. They basically took the idea and applied it to F1. So if you like racing...
yeah, I've seen that.
So yeah, they basically they used, rather than just doing a 2D screen, they built the track in a 3D world on a table. And you could see live stats on the cars going around. You could see the video feed. You could possibly bring in the different racers' cameras. So that idea of becoming a completely immersive experience within your own environment, I think that's pretty cool. And I think you can easily do that. The idea of having pixels absolutely everywhere at your disposal can really open up a lot of opportunity. That is really going to come down to processing power. Can you actually do all that locally? Do you have enough power? And Apple's lucky enough, right? They've got their own chipset that they can kind of control a bit of that roadmap. So
no, that is really cool. I don't know when we're going to see the next Vision Pro 2 or just Vision. Actually, I've been thinking about it. I get they named it Vision Pro, but I was sure they'd have just a Vision. So are people just going to call it Apple Vision? I want to buy the new Apple Vision. That just sounds funny in my head. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Well, I'll take it back a step here. So one of the things you just pointed out here is it's one of the parts that drives what you do as a product manager. At the same time, it's one of those things that makes it hard to find satisfaction in your job at the same time. And that's just the reality that before you launch the product, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Before you even launch it, you're likely already working on its replacement. And there's always something on its heels, whether it be a competitor, whether it be your own thing. And hopefully it's your own thing that's obsolete in your own thing. But you're never done. And it's very hard to take the time to really reflect and feel that success from launching something, because inevitably you're already looking at what's coming next. You're happy this is out there, and you hope it generates the revenue and does what it needs to do for your customers and your business. But you just saw, like, the industry itself is already talking about next versions, right? One. The PlayStation 5 launched, everybody's talking about the PS6, right? You don't have a moment to rest. You're always working on the next best thing. So
you're always trying to make it better and better. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a great segue to my next question. Like, how do you measure the success of your product though? Like, is it just the number of users? Is it the feedback that you get? Like, how do you do that? I'm sure you have to like gauge success, right?
So, and this will vary by industry, by company. So definitely take it with a grain of salt. But ultimately, you need to take a look at just market adoption. How well is it resonating with your target audience? So when you go to build whatever it is you're building, who are you trying to reach, and how do they like it? What's your customer feedback? Ultimately, you want to delight your customers. So if people are out there raving about it, saying it's amazing, that's awesome. You also have a certain amount of revenue that you forecasted to generate. So key business things of, your revenue, your profitability, like what's your GM, what's your growth rate. If it's software, you'll have things like daily active users, monthly active users, subscribers. You'll have all these different metrics that measure how quickly it's being adopted by the market. So those are always key drivers. The other thing you can take a look at is there's three areas: the TAM, SAM, and SOM. And so how much of the market are you actually capturing? Inevitably, you always want to try and get into something early, be one of the first people, and then dominate and really just take over a good chunk of the market. So you can see how you're doing relative to other competitors. Outside of that, you can also measure it a little bit by other people that start to come into the market. So if you've really hit something right, if people see your success, you will see people trying to enter your market and take their share away from you. So if you start to see you have a target on your back, you're probably doing something right.
You're probably doing something right. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but yeah, that is true. Like, if you're doing something right, obviously other people will try to come in, take some slice of that pie, and you just have to try to push them away while like keep growing as a company. Like, it's a very unique situation to be here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never thought of success like that.
Yeah, I had there at one point. I'll just share a quick story if it's all right. I remember one time we were launching a product. It's a product line. We had a whole line of items in the market. We were growing that area of the business quite well, and some competitors started to come into the market. And I remember when they launched their product, their new entry to try and compete against us, they took a picture of the entire team, and it was huge. There was like over 1,000 people. And they're like, we're happy to bring this to market. All of us are so excited. And they actually, in their post, they said, we have more people working on this product than this company has in total. And they called us out specifically in their post. And I know their intent wasn't as friendly as it was supposed, as it came across to me, but I was actually really proud of that moment. The fact that we had somebody, sorry, I've got my dog here next to me. The fact that they were threatened by us to the point where they needed to call us out and try and flex, their staff size. I was happy with that. I mean, the fact that we can do so much more with such a smaller team, I was very proud of that. And we had a superior product. So if anything else, it just stoked my fire and made us more excited.
Yeah, just put fire under your pants. You're like, now we're going to go get it.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I think my next question, I think I want to go back to the beginning where we just talked about how you got into product management in the first place. So is there something that you did during your undergrad that is sort of like an inflection? I wouldn't say an inflection point. I'm trying to phrase it in the way that I want to. But is there something that you did in your undergrad that you feel is really important now as a product manager? Is it an extracurricular that you might have done? Some specific course that you've taken at university? Like, is there any advice that you'd give?
I would love to say yes to that. If I was being completely honest, no. When I was doing my electronics engineering, I was very young and I was very just focused on trying to find a career that allowed me to make a decent living. that was my primary focus. I had interests within that field, so high tech was definitely an area. So I wanted to work at a super cool high tech company and make good money. That was my focus when I was young. I would say it was as I started to develop. So once I got into the business and I started to participate, I got curious. I think that was the thing. So I didn't want to just learn about my job and just focus on my thing. I wanted to know how this works, how that division works. So I got curious about how the business operated as an entity. And I just worked with people in anywhere I could. If there's an opportunity to learn and grow, I did it. I was very ambitious, and I didn't say no to a lot of things when I was younger, and I was very focused on my career. And I think that was part of what led to it. It was just that curiosity and willingness to just always try something different and challenge myself to go outside of my comfort zone. And getting comfortable being uncomfortable was key. You've probably heard that phrase many times, but yeah.
Yeah. But was there something that you would, advise your younger self to do? Something that you maybe might have possibly missed out on during your education? If I'd done it, I would have probably be where I'm at, maybe 5 years before.
It's interesting. You kind of see the butterfly effect. If you go back and you change one thing, would these other things have fallen into place? Maybe not. I can say I'm happy with the path I took. So I took a path that got me into a career early, and then I thought I could work my way up. And I genuinely believed at that stage that hard work and performance would be enough to unlock all opportunities. I would say it can vary for person to person, location to location, but in my experience, having a solid degree along with that experience opens up more doors. So that combination does help quite a bit. It's actually why I ended up going back and getting my my MBA from Wilfrid Laurier at the Lazarina School. So that did a couple of things. It opened my mind to new questions to be asking, new concepts to be considering. It allowed me to talk more confidently and competently in various business discussions. It allowed me to do my job a lot smarter. So it allowed me to find some shortcuts just to make certain things easier and to challenge areas where we could be better. So going back and getting that along with connections. So I can honestly say that getting those connections within the industry is important. So I would also say, as you're going through school, if you're considering any career, make connections, know people, have people in different industries, and keep those friendships going, because inevitably you're going to come across situations, questions, problems that you won't have the expertise, and you can leverage your network and just ask people their thoughts on it and get different perspectives. Having that group of people you can lean on is going to be important.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Just speaking with people, it just opens your mind up to new ideas, new perspectives. And, you as a product manager, I believe you want to be open to all different kinds of ideas. You never know what might just click in your head one day and just everything just starts making sense. So I completely agree with that. Another question that I had in a similar way was, would you recommend, or do you think it's necessary for someone to succeed as a product manager to have an MBA? Let's take my example. I'm doing computer science right now. Do you think it's really important for me to do an MBA for me to actually succeed as a good product manager, or I can just somehow find my way through?
I don't think it's necessary. I think there are things that you need to understand just in general. So there's a lot of business components that you will have to understand. So when you look at the business, just taking a look at, balance sheets, income statements, understanding what cash flow really means versus what a pro forma might look like. So, there's some real world impacts where something might look right, but if you don't have the money to actually back it, if you literally don't have the money in the bank to pay some of those bills, that's going to break your model. So I think there are very key business concepts you'll just need to know. I don't think you need to have an MBA to get there. I am seeing more and more people putting it as a requirement for product managers. I
see that too.
It's there, but skill set wise, it will help you. It definitely doesn't hurt to have an MBA, but I know many people, and myself included, I was successfully doing it for a long time because I had a very good understanding of the market and the customer, and I had a good sense of the business at that stage, even without the degree. I just understood how it all worked. So I think you can be very successful in that area. But if you want to start going from business to business and start getting experience that way, I think having a business component to your background will help you. Not even if it's not necessarily MBA. If you have a component there, I don't think that would hurt you to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely believe that if you can show the skill set, I like to give people the opportunity because I know I've had many people on my teams that haven't had an MBA, and they're amazing product managers. Because ultimately, it comes down to empathy. If some people can be empathetic towards the customer's needs, their problems, they understand the situation, and they can bridge it to whatever you're trying to solve for. If they understand that gap of what we can do versus what their needs are, and they can represent that customer well, that's going to get them so much further in their role than
Fair enough.
being able to say they took a finance course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough. Uh, I'm trying to think if I have any other questions. Sorry. Uh, yeah, actually, look, we haven't delved into the job that you're doing today yet. So can you just tell us about what does your day to day look like as a product manager, and like how has it been different at CDM from the other companies that you worked at? It's a two-parted question. So yeah.
Fair enough. So I'll talk about the practice of product management within our company as a whole. So there's a few ways we do it. So we have when it comes to what we offer our clients, there's mostly solutions. So it's not necessarily a widget. There's not like a pen, something like this. There's not like something that has a SKU to it. You buy it, we just take it off the shelf and ship it. Inevitably, somebody has a system that they need to be installed, operated, maintained, and insights and reporting provided on it. So it's a full living, breathing beast. And our team helps steer some of the roadmap on components within it that need to have capabilities in order to deliver those services or performance metrics. And so what we try and do is we try and understand what's happening in the market competitively, understand what our customers are asking for, and determine where is it best to spend our resources on, what's going to benefit our customers best now, where they're going to want to be a year from now or 2 years from now, and then make sure that we have it carved out and planned for, that we're going to have those in place in time for when the market needs it. Inevitably, there are things that pop up that take you off that roadmap. So there could be an urgent need from a very high-profile client, and you need to find a way to deliver that one. And that's going to shift your planned roadmap out quite a bit. Within our business, there's multiple teams as well. So it's not just a single thing. You need to coordinate between, there's creative teams that literally do creative content. You have that tying into how is it going to be operated on the network? How do you get the content out there? How do you manage it? What devices is it playing back on? And will it play smoothly with the hardware that's there? And there's different hardware out in the field, so you have to have compatibility maintained.
Yeah.
And then you've got the data side of it. So that's the other component that we look after as well is the data side. And that's all the measurements of what's actually performing, where could things be better, what impact is it having on our clients' business? Because ultimately what they're trying to do with our products is improve their business. We need to make sure we can show whatever impact, whether it be positive or negative, whatever it is, it's data. So you need to be able to provide that back to them in a way that can be actioned. And so we try and tie that all together so that it's all planned out. So upfront expectations are set. We deliver the product and service and maintain it. We give that feedback and it's iterative. So at that point, it's, okay, what would you like to do next? How would you like to improve it? And we just keep building on those capabilities. And so within our group, and within my purview, we kind of look after all that. So we've got the product team working on roadmap of a good chunk of it. We have the technology team that's building all the cool tech that operates all of our clients' systems. And then we've got the data team that's providing the metrics on all of that. And we have to coordinate that with the install teams, with the design team, creative team. Yeah. So all that it's all like one big loop that just has to keep working together. And so we have internal stakeholders and clients, and we have external stakeholders and clients. And so we try and manage all those expectations and deliver on it.
Something I love about product management is that you can always you're always wearing different hats at all times, and that's just something that I absolutely love about it. Is there something that's always strikes out to you more than all of the stuff that you do,
Um,
or do you just like wearing all the different hats every day?
it's a good question. So I like wearing all the hats. I mean, for me, I like to be in everything. I like to know what's happening across the board. So for me, that's it. That's kind of when I got into product management. I really started to like it because it opened me up to so many things. So every day was slightly different. There's always unique problems that you're trying to solve and new challenges. For me, I enjoy that. I like being able to switch things up. I also find that helps when you're trying to solve problems. If you get stuck on one thing, you can change, work on something else. Inevitably, you're going to figure out the other one just by kind of distracting yourself.
Yeah.
The the part that I like the most about product management is, and I have to constantly remind myself about this because you can get caught up in a lot of the things that you're doing as a business and all those day-to-day things, is going back to that original problem of why are we doing this for the customer? What's really at the root of this? Especially if you're working in the tech business, you can get really hung up on speeds and feeds. If it's a super cool thing, nobody else has it in the market. You get really excited about it because it is cool, it is fun, it's neat. Um, but you really always have to remind yourself of, will the customer care? Will it actually matter? So regardless of how fast, light, how many pixels it has, whatever it is,
Yeah.
what's it really going to mean at the end of the day when somebody buys it? When we were talking about the Vision Pro, they get it home. How long is that shine going to last? Were they just excited to have the tech, or does it actually mean something to them? And I think that's what people are experiencing on that product is there was a promise, there was an excitement, and I think for some people it's falling flat, while others are just getting started and they're super excited about it. So I think you've got a little bit of a bit of both in that audience. So for me, always remembering that you're helping customers, that you're trying to make somebody else's life better. That's kind of the thing that gets me the most excited about it. And so wearing that empathetic hat of the customer of what are we trying to do today, that's my favorite one to wear.
You know, I've found this quality in every product manager I've ever spoken with in my life. They're always that you should learn how to, you should be empathetic towards the customer. You should realize what the customer wants and how you're able to deliver it. But I don't know, like, correct me if I'm wrong. My opinion is that, like, that's not a very teachable skill, is it? Do you have like other thoughts?
Uh, I think I think a lot of skills, most skills can be learned. Some easier than others, especially if you have a natural ability or keenness towards it. Empathy is tough to teach because if somebody doesn't care, they ultimately don't care. But I guarantee you, everybody cares about something. So trying to figure out if they can connect with those people and how do you do that? How do you make that connection with somebody actually mean something? Um, the thing you can teach people is you can teach them to listen. And over time, I think it can grow into empathy. If nothing else, if people go in with the idea of like, don't go in and pitch your widget, don't go in and do that. Just listen to what people are telling you about their problems or what their experience is or what they're trying to do, and just really understand what they're trying to do. And then imagine being in their shoes, and what would that mean to you? Starting with that, you can teach that, and you can go through exercises that what did you hear? What were they saying? Especially if you're in the room, you can add some input as to what you heard, and then start to share those ideas. And over time, just keep doing those, and the person gets in a habit of just listening. That's the first step. If you're at least open to understanding other people's perspectives, that will get you towards empathy. Even if it's faked a little bit, you're going through the motions of what empathy usually would entail. Is that really just try to listen and not solve it right away, just really listen.
Try to understand. Yeah. I think a big part of that, and you're the one who's taught me that, was that asking the right questions is a big part of being a product manager. Like, you something that you taught me was never ever make assumptions about anything. So like, how can I, like, doesn't just come from experience, like knowing what the right question might be to ask.
Um,
Like, I was lucky enough to have you to teach me that, but what about other people as well?
um,
Is
it's
there a book maybe that you can recommend?
there's lots of books. I'll try and keep it simple for this.
Yeah.
For this right now, I mean, the most common one to ask is the five whys. And so if somebody tells you like, I need this. Okay, well, why do you need that? and they'll give you a reason as to why they think they need that thing. And then you're like, okay, well, tell me why that need exists. And then inevitably, you'll get by asking the question 5 times, you'll get to a layer that's actually so far removed from the thing that you're going to give them that you have a bit of breathing room to really understand the root cause of the problem. And somebody may say that, you know what, they may have started saying, hey, I need you to make me this pen. But really what the problem was is they needed a way to capture their ideas while they're on a train. Something like that. Something so weird that way. You're like, okay, so now you have situational awareness. Like, okay, you're traveling somewhere. You may not have access to a computer, and you need a way to take notes. Okay, got it. Doesn't have to be a pen. It could be something totally different.
Like a pencil or something. Yeah, anything.
Yep. Mobile phone.
Yeah.
Something like that, right? Any of those could work.
Yeah.
But by asking the whys, you get so far removed from that initial ask that you have better context around the thing. So I think the 5 whys is probably one of the best things to be always doing, just as a simple one. If you're doing nothing else, that's an easy way to make sure that you're solving a good problem. Trying to think of other tools.
Yeah. Why is good? Yeah. Others are about to make a playful joke about why is good.
You can ask. You definitely ask more. I can tell the other thing, I guess, when we get into conversations is, you inevitably feel pressures as a product manager, and you start to realize like you have a lot of incoming requests. Everybody wants to do something. Ideas can come from anywhere. Some of them are grown from within the business. Some of them are external coming in. Some are peers sending stuff into you. So inevitably you have all these requests coming in. Your roadmap can only do so much. And so you're usually having to say no to a lot of things, or you're having to put into the backlog. And inevitably that backlog will get purged. Some of it will never happen. Some of it will get carried forward. But you can easily get into the habit of almost feeling like you need to say no at the beginning. You'll have days where you just get so saturated with people asking you for stuff, or you're just like, we can't do it. Like, we'd love to, but we can't. And you have to keep reminding yourself to just be open to the idea, listen to it, explore the idea. Don't be the wall of no. Just listen, understand it. That'll make your day some days. You'll have a day where you may not even think that you're going to be able to achieve the things that are on your roadmap, and then something else will come along, and you're like, that's a brilliant idea, and then it's going to be the next thing you work on for the next 2 years. I'll say this. Sorry, I didn't answer one question before, and this just reminded me of it, is the thing that's unique about where we are right now is how fluid our roadmap is, just in terms of how quickly we can adapt to needs. The nice thing is right now, like I've worked for companies where roadmaps were years out. Like it would take 2 years, 3 years to actually build something. Here we can do it a lot faster, so we can be a bit more dynamic. I think that took some adjustment, just getting used to your roadmap is a good direction of where you're trying to go, but inevitably it's going to be shifting, and you have to be able to adapt quickly to shift. So yeah, so that's the one thing that's a little bit unique there.
Yeah, what are there any differences, because when CDM is primarily like a B2B business, like how is being a product manager at a B2C company and a B2B company different? Because you don't have users at the end of the day for B2B. Your users are the customers who you're building it for. So just getting a grasp about that it's a very challenging situation to be in. That like, because you don't need to just understand about one person, you need to understand about how the entire company works and what they want and why is it that they're asking you to do X. Like that was something that I remember it took me a while to just grasp my head around. I'm not making, or I'm not working on something that a normal person would use. It'd be a whole company that's probably going to be using it. So did it take you time to ever adjust to that?
From a business perspective, I grew up in B2C. That's actually my comfort zone. And personally, I like it because you have a lot in common with the person that you're working with, right? So inevitably they have similar structures, similar teams. So there's a lot in common to begin with. So you come to the table feeling very similar. Usually in a B2B was my comfort zone. Sorry, not B2C. B2B was my comfort zone. B2C, you're dealing typically with a larger volume of customers. So there's pros and cons to that. in my opinion, the pro is you're dealing with large enough numbers that typically you can start to do statistical analysis on things and you can find trends. And if you're trying to target a certain market, there's definitely easier information to get that will kind of steer you in the direction of this is the kind of persona, this is what we'll look at, this is the kind of market size that exists with these people. That can be a little bit easier. And I say easier, I could be wrong, than B2B, because within B2B, what you often get is you can get very strong voices in the room when you're trying to make those decisions. And so it's no longer about those statistical probabilities. Now you're dealing with, you've got a very large customer who is willing to do business with you if you meet these needs, or it has to be done this way. And there's going to be strong influence from those customers on your roadmap. That could be good, and often it is, but it can also be challenging sometimes because it could distract you from what could be longer term better good for your business. So while you could still meet their objectives and you have a very happy customer, you may have missed out on the opportunity to build another competitive attribute, product, enhancement, whatever it is, that would actually position you better in the market to capture more business. And so then with those stronger opinions, you may have to do trade-offs about what's short-term good versus long-term good. And I think with B2C, you have a little bit clearer direction on where you want to go than with B2B.
Yeah, no, what I've been thinking is that, like, how I look at it personally, or like actually the point that you raised, like B2B, you're technically making it for one entity, that product. So you have a clearer vision of what you have to achieve.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're doing it for a B2C, you have like a million data points, for example, that can confuse you a lot. Yeah. And like just understanding what you want to be doing, or like going, how do you want to be going forward with it could be a challenge.
It could be. It's interesting though. So if I were to get you or ask you to describe what a typical persona user would be of an Apple device, would you have a hard time kind of describing what they look like?
Yeah, it's big. Yeah. It's also people who are like really into tech. It's people who just want a phone and they just know Apple is the biggest company. Yeah, that's a fair point.
It's
funny.
You often we as a human, you think you're often very unique, and you are to a certain extent. But when you start to look at predictable behavior, we're actually all a lot more similar than you'd expect. And so that's where that can kind of come into play. You can, if you're going after a certain market, there's probably going to be a lot more in common than you'd expect, and you can kind of treat it as that persona, and probably be fairly accurate in delivering for that person. So you can almost treat them as that one entity you're trying to reach, and it'll have a bit of a halo effect around people who are similar, and they'll feel that closeness to what you're trying to offer. But
that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I don't know how much time do you have, but I do have one or two questions.
Sure, let's do it.
That I like. Okay. So the next one that I have is like, do you have any advice for people at UW, for example? Like, I'm assuming there's people listening to this, but do you have any advice for future product managers, especially in this weird economy that we're in? Like for future graduates and future product managers and looking for internships, co-ops, do you have any advice for them right now?
It's interesting. We've covered quite a bit here. So, I mean, the first thing that came to mind is just the willingness to listen. I won't go into that too much, but be willing to listen, be willing to learn. Throughout life, expect that. So I'll say this: going down the product management path has just been constant improvement in terms of my awareness, education, markets I'm learning. You're always learning. So be prepared to go possibly back to school again. As you're learning different careers, absorb as much as you can, make those connections as much as you can. That will actually get you pretty far. Having those conversations with a lot of people will really help you. Being curious about the different aspects of the business will help you make decisions about the business. And actually, be aware of the type of product management role you're getting into. So different businesses behave totally different. So you can go into a company where they have a product manager for every single component on a device, right? So if you're looking at somebody who's building a phone, there could be a product manager who's responsible for the buttons and the tactile feel of those mechanical mechanisms. Somebody else is in charge of the screen. I've been in roles where usually it's a lot more encompassing of the overall business impact. So everything from inventory levels, the entire product lineup, if there's multiple types of it, sales and marketing material, things like that. So ask those questions. What does product management look like within those businesses, and what are you most interested in learning? Do you want to do it all? Do you want to focus on a certain area? Often the bigger the customer, the more specific your area of focus will be, and the smaller the business, the more broad it will be. So you really do have your choice of how much work you want to take on or how much exposure you want to have to the rest of the business. Today I've talked mostly as if you're going to own a good chunk of what it would mean to own a product and manage the entire life cycle, but you could be very focused and you could have time to grow outside of that. So explore it all.
Yeah. No, actually, something that you said, like about how different companies can have different roles for product management, or like they can separate out product management in different components, for example. Something in the little experience that I have in speaking with product managers across is you're always firstly working in a team, so you should know your strengths and weaknesses. That's what I've understood. Like you should know that, oh, I'm the guy who, I don't know, knows how to research, and I'll be that guy on the team who will do competitive market research, figuring out what the who the user is, what the persona is. But like you can shape yourself in different way. On one hand, like what I've realized is that you need to be very well rounded. You need to understand how everything works. But I also feel that you should have like a spike on that as well. That this is what my forte is, like understanding how data works, or like understanding what the feedback is, understanding not creating user stories and speaking with the developers, the designers. That's a big part of it. So do you have something to add to that? Like if for a college student, for example, like finding your niche in, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that'll probably come naturally. So, I mean, if you're coming from a computer science background, you're probably going to be leaning towards the coding side of things and how maybe the architecture's configured to work, right? So you might understand that component to it. Somebody who's gone through and has more of the business background, possibly, they may be focusing on pro formas and financial performance more so than the other one. So I think based on your academic background or your work experience, I think you'll kind of find that niche easy to do. The question is, how do you grow that? And that's the part that's not really there. If you were to increase an area of focus as you're doing it, I would say practice making decisions. It's one of the biggest things a product manager has to do, is ultimately you're going to be making decisions on whether to do something or not do it, whether to choose option A or B, whether a customer wants one thing or another. You're going to be making decisions throughout the day. Get comfortable making them, especially in absence of perfect data. You won't have all the right information. And if you try and do it, you're going to get stuck just constantly trying to find the right information to give you that certainty. At a certain point, you have to just call it and say, we're going to make this decision. It's going to go this way. And be aware of what you need to do to mitigate any risk on those ones. We can go down that path of what that means, but ultimately make decisions and be ready to pivot if they aren't going the way you expect them to. So make a decision, but be ready to admit when you're wrong. And don't stick. If you're wrong, call it and make the choice that's going to be best for the business, rather than being proud and sticking to, no, I'm right and this is the best thing to do. So be ready for that.
Yeah, I think that's where like having a team around you also helps, right? That's where speaking with different people, getting different perspectives come and play out as well, like in making those decisions. I don't know, how often do you like just go with your gut if you have like a decision to make?
I like to have some backing before I do it. I think it's pretty clear. There's times where your gut is going to tell you right off the bat, like this is clearly the right way to go. You're confident of it. Do a quick sanity check with a trusted person within the business. Just, this is what I'm thinking. Is there anything I'm missing? And then you can go with it. If the risk is super high, I'll spend a bit more time trying to make sure I have all the right information. If the risk is relatively low and the speed to getting something done is more important to the business, I'll lean on my gut more than I will trying to seek out information on it. And over time, you're going to find that your gut's going to be right. You're going to get more experience. You're going to have tried a couple different things. You'll know what's going to feel right at that point. So your gut becomes much more reliable over time.
Yeah, that's when experience kicks in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think we are done with the episode. Do you have any concluding thoughts for anyone listening, anyone watching?
Thanks for listening. If you've made it this part of the interview, that means you're actually pretty passionate about this, and hopefully our paths cross out in the world, and we have a chance to, if nothing else, talk or possibly work together. So, good luck.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, anyways, that's the podcast for this month, and we'll see you next time.